we're live. Welcome back to the Family Entrepreneur Life live show. I'm your host, Ariana, and I actually dragged this guy with me today. And we are meeting in real life. It's happening. It's not a digital interview.
You're real.
You're real.
You're real. We're not just electrons on my
three-dimensional.
screen.
We're three-dimensional.
And these cool people over here are Danielle and Justin Williams of Legendary Marriage. And they also run the Legendary Marriage podcast. So you should definitely check that out. I don't remember what episode.
I was going to say we were also guests.
Well, you know what?
Actually,
Actually,
number something.
I was meant to say, what number were you guys?
should know that.
33?
Well,
30 something.
And Jill is on our
Number 45?
42 this week.
42.
LegendaryMarriage.com.
Just go check out all the episodes. It's awesome.
So which one's the bleep episode?
That's 42.
Okay, 42 you guys
yeah.
gotta check out.
Justin has mad bleeping skills.
You guys are episode 34.
Woo, 34.
Episode number 34.
All right, so today is going to be a little different because we are in real life. So it's a little bit more fun that way. We can interact with each other. But we have Danielle and Justin here to tell us a little bit about their story, to talk about how do you have a legendary marriage? What are some of the things that are involved in that? And, you know, Tom and I have gone through a lot of stuff as well. So we're just going to have a good old chat with a bunch of entrepreneur married couples.
So I feel like I should probably go grab my notepad.
You don't need a notepad.
I need a lot of help with the
You
legendary.
just lock it in all up here, Tom.
We're super dressed up because we're actually on
No,
our
we
way
dress like this
to-
every day. Stop, Ariana.
So actually,
we
I
do
do
this every day.
They totally know I don't because
Yeah.
I wear t-shirts with every episode.
I know, so do I.
I mean, I'm
We're
wearing
dressed up to
actual
go to,
pants.
you're wearing actual pants.
Yeah,
pants,
are good.
dresses. We're going to a live event cocktail hour later after this. So we're already prepped and ready to go. And we're actually in the conference room of our hotel. So hopefully you can hear us okay. We're talking loudly, and yeah, let us know if you can.
Let us know how many tones of brown you see behind you.
No, seriously.
I think like 5.
I feel like
Five.
we're
Five
dating.
tones of brown.
And we're on Sesame Street. All right, so guys, tell us a little
Sounds
bit
like,
about
where the
you
heck did
guys.
that come
Well, I
from?
don't know. Sesame
I
Street
can't wait to
just
see
popped out.
more.
Tell us about you. How did you meet? How did you kind of get into, well, how did you become entrepreneurs in that as well?
Well, we met at the grocery store. I checked her out.
Checked her out.
Yeah. No, we met at the grocery store. We were both working.
I met him 6
Cashiers,
months
cashiers.
before he met me.
Yeah.
Because he was,
That happened.
well, he was dating like random people that were at the store, and one of them was my friend. And so I knew of him because he was a boyfriend of my friend, so I knew him. But he swears he never met me until like 6 months later.
So dating random people at the store. I mean, today it's Tinder, but apparently back then
Back
it
then
was.
Back then, you would actually, meet people
Like in person?
and like engage with them in some way.
kind of like this.
Yeah, and you'd be
Wow.
like, "Hey, you're interesting," or
I want to
just
talk to you.
I just want to just know more about you or whatever. And then you would ask somebody out on a date.
Okay.
What is
You'd be like, "Oh my gosh,
Well,
Tom, I'm really curious."
Is that like
about
the
who
check
you are."
yes or no?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, okay.
Oh
okay.
no,
Thank you for bringing that up,
no!
Because Justin, so at the time he was a cashier, and so we had this real skinny like receipt tape that was like when it was like purple writing on it.
Yeah, what
real
was the dot? We
cheap
go.
Yeah,
Old school print.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he took a whole roll of receipt tape and he wrote a love note to me, professing his love and how great we would be together. And he would tell customers, "She's gonna be my wife someday." And I was like, "Whoa, buddy, wait, whoa, hey ho." So
I didn't say that before we went on.
after we
didn't
went
tell-
out on a date, then you told
All right.
people we were
Yeah,
getting married. So it was like, he told me that when we were on our first date. And I was like, check please. I don't know what is going on here. Yeah.
happening?
But it turned out he was right. So we did get married.
I love hearing this.
He was right.
You were right, honey.
Right.
Somebody else likes hearing
I got
that.
moves.
Throwing bracelets everywhere.
That's
Somebody
right.
else
He's
likes
got
it
game.
too.
He's got game.
Whoa.
The receipt tape. He made me yarn bracelets. He had all the moves.
Yarn bracelets.
That's what you gotta do.
Talent right there.
A man's got to do what a man's got to do.
So when did the entrepreneur part come in?
Well,
I started my
That's
first
a funny
business when
story.
I was 13 years old.
Okay, so you're like
Like,
this guy.
I came home the last day of school and was like, Dad, my friends and I can do all this fun stuff. I need some money. He said, you need a job.
Yeah.
So he helped me think through how to start my first business. It was a lawn business, and I was making a couple $100 a week as a 13-year-old.
Wow,
I filed my
that's
first
pretty
tax
good.
return at
that's
14.
dangerous. is what
I never
that
did
is.
all the fun stuff that summer because I was too busy working.
Yeah.
But that was the first time for me. And then my whole life, I've worked and I've always had some kind of a side hustle through college, a couple different jobs and things where I'm always bringing some kind of a, hey, we thought about doing this and adding this product or service to what we were doing, or doing my own thing.
Yeah, well, the thing that, whenever we talk to entrepreneurs, what we end up finding in hindsight is you can pick those points out throughout their past. At the time, you might not have been able to see it, but looking back, it's like, oh, yep, this is when I started thinking that way. And then every time I did something else in the future, even if it was within a job, you're thinking that entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I love it now, but when we started our coaching education, so fast forward a long time, Justin actually became a coach before I did. My education is I'm a teacher. I teach little kids, all that, and so it's kind of like teaching and coaching are very similar giftings. And so when I got into coaching, it was because Justin was a coach, and I really loved was how we were able to communicate using a lot of the tools that he was learning through his coaching practice.
But at first, I would try to use some of these tools, and Danielle would be like, quit talking to me like Dr. Phil.
Yeah, I did say that. I'd say stop. I'd say
I
stop
quit coaching
Dr.
right
Philling me.
Yeah.
We decided that was just not a good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work out so well. I'm much better at the husband role than the coach role.
Sure. But what we try to help couples do is bring some of the same skills, the communication tools, without trying to coach each other, but use the communication skills to get on the same page.
Because that's what we found is a lot of couples kind of where it's kind of ouchy, not it's just it feels awkward or you're just kind of feeling lonely or whatever. And it's a lot of times because you're not having real conversations anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
You're not talking about the things that really matter. You're talking about chores and kids and, of course kids matter. Of course.
The little stuff.
But transactional conversations more than hard conversations.
And we get there because we don't have the nuances of communication to begin with. And so in the process of trying to have important conversations, we end up stepping on each other's toes and feelings get hurt. And then we start forming these unspoken alliances, like the rules of the relationship. Well, we aren't going to talk about that ever again. I know better than to mention that, right? And so we start shutting down these important areas of our lives until the point where you're going, well, don't forget to get milk on the way home. And
It's
she said 9 words to me, yay, and vice versa.
It's we can't talk about money anymore, and we can't talk about fitness anymore, and we can't talk about religion anymore, and we can't talk about the topics become so narrow that it's only things that are going to be pleasant and go well. Yeah. And it's but there's all this stuff that is never said, and you can feel the awkwardness and the tension and you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing kind of a thing. Yeah. Almost separate lives or roommates.
If you guys are watching live or if you're catching the replay on this, let us know if this is something that you've encountered in your marriage. Shout out and say, yeah, we totally don't have the awkward conversations anymore because it got to the point where it was just too hard for us. Or, say, no, we still do have them. We want to know, are you encountering this in your marriage? And then let us know if you can hear us too, because I just want to make sure we're super far away from the computer. So we're talking loud, but just, shoot it out if you're watching. Can you hear us? Let us know. And if you've got questions while you're watching, pop those in.
Generally, Justin's kind of loud, so.
Oh, no, you did not.
He's always
We'll
nailing
be on the
it.
phone, she'll be on the phone or a Skype call or something and getting louder and louder until she's screaming into the computer or the phone.
I get loud when I'm
Danielle,
excited.
I do. I get loud when I'm excited too.
I'm pretty sure I got fired from a job before because I talked too loud on the phone. Yeah.
Oh,
My
man.
boss would consistently tell me, because we were like in cubicles, and she would be like, "You really need to dial your voice down. Inside voice, Danielle." And I'm like,
Level 2.
Whisper to you. That's what our kindergartner tells us. He's really loud. When I've had live calls before.
Oh yeah, I get yelled at.
Oh, I have Megan's watching, coming through loud and clear. Yay!
All right.
Oh, I'm
Megan.
actually impressed that I could read that from this far.
Wow.
My
I
eyes
can't.
are not going yet. This guy, I did a live with Rachel Miller, and she, as the live started, she goes, "Is that Tom upstairs? I can hear Tom in the
Was I
background."
talking or was I moving?
You were talking.
Was
You
talking.
were definitely
Well, see,
talking.
I get excited too.
He was in the
Like when I'm
kitchen,
coaching.
and I was in the
Yeah,
basement,
I
but
got
we don't
kicked out
have
of
a
the
door.
office.
Yep, I kicked him out.
yeah.
I also kicked him off the internet when he was not happy about
Oh, yeah,
that.
you
He was
kicked off-
trying to play Destiny, and it was like, the
get kicked
internet
off
connection
everything.
is so bad right now. I'm like, you can't. Yeah.
Justin will do that with me. I'll be watching Gilmore Girls. That's like my thing on Netflix. I love Gilmore Girls.
Watching episodes without me, so that then I'm lost when we go to watch.
Honey, it's the
What
same
happened?
episode over
I
and over
watched
again.
2 seasons last night.
Stop. But no, he'll be like on some Skype call or something, and he's like, he just shuts down my internet because he's like, "I'm sorry, I can't do my job because you're watching Gilmore
I have
Girls."
ways of shutting down the
Oh
iPad.
yes,
the
I've
TV.
done the same thing. Yep, here's her laptop and disconnected.
Yeah.
I definitely cannot see the comment. Well, Megan says, yeah, we've been there, but we've worked diligently on dealing with conflict and now have the tough conversations. Yeah, totally.
You know, and the thing that I found with us was like when we were in college, because that's where we met, we would just have those conversations because there wasn't much to worry about. But as we kind of progressed through our life and, you know, we got the apartment and the house and the kids, everything became more transactional. And unless we carved out time to have some of those deep conversations, we never did. And that was where I think we got in trouble for a long time, because between the businesses, between the kids, and just everything going on with life, we really just lost all those deep conversations that used to connect us a lot more.
Well, and you were traveling for 2
Well,
years.
I was going to say that didn't.
So there was not very many deep conversations because he, you know, would come home and he was exhausted and I was exhausted because I was pregnant, and then we had an infant and I wasn't sleeping, and we were both trying to keep like our little bubble of stress to ourselves so that we didn't stress the other person out.
Yeah.
And it completely blew up in our face because I just melted down.
Yeah.
But
So how did you guys get into what you're doing now, which is the legendary marriage?
Yeah. So I worked in churches for about 15 years, pastoring and leading IT and facilities and all kinds of things, programming and
That's what the cool kids do.
along the way, we hit our like crisis point back in 2005, and we figured it out. We made a commitment, like, okay, that's not how our story goes. It doesn't end here. And we started, you know, listening and watching and talking and reading and everything. And we found our way back together and started finding things that worked. There were a lot of gaps that we saw. And so we started helping other couples through the churches that we were a part of.
And it was just something that we did. We just enjoyed it. It was, you know, kind of, you know, we'd do it volunteer, and then Justin was on staff as a marriage pastor for a while. But it wasn't really until we started our coaching that it really seemed to like fit together with the ministry aspect. It felt like a lot of times when you just say like, you know, I'll pray for you about this and we're just going to talk it out. But then people didn't really have any skin in the game to make an difference moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, they were just, I mean, we love Jesus, but their thoughts were like, well, if we love Jesus, like it'll all work out for the best. And it's like,
no,
much.
marriage is
well,
still hard.
you all just
You
actually
gotta
have to
do your
do
part.
stuff. Yeah. You have
Like,
to actually.
as in anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have your faith, believe however you do, and do the freaking work.
Yeah. I think that's it though. People don't want to have to do the work.
Yeah.
And I'm married. That's it. No, marriage is a continual work in process.
Yeah.
Like you talk to couples early on, you talk to couples who've been married for 30 years. You have to work at it all the time.
I think the nature of marriage is it is a container, a context, a place where you're forced to do your work. Each of you.
Yes.
And you're forced to in positive ways because you have this amazing guy who wants the best for you. And he wants to call forth the brilliance and the majesty and the beauty and the strength and the courage in you. And you want the same for him. Like there is no coaching relationship, counseling relationship, pastoral relationship. There's no other relationship on earth where you truly are partners in wanting what's best for each other because you want all the best of him. You want all the best of her. So the trick is we lose sight of I lose sight of my role in calling forth her brilliance and instead start calling out her inadequacies, her weaknesses, her insecurities. Because I'm not doing my work on my inadequacies and weaknesses and insecurities. We project it and we get it all mixed up. We stand with ego and go, well, it's not me. It's
And the truth is, you can only work on yourself because when you try to like nag or harass or whatever it is, it blows it up 10 times worse than what it would be if you are responsible for yourself and if you work and bring your best self to marriage, parenting, whatever it is, your job. You are only responsible for yourself. And if you bring your best version, your marriage will be better because, you're doing your stuff. But even if he is not doing a darn thing, it will be better. And I will be better off if I work on myself. It's two individual people, but together as a team. So.
Yeah, there's, what's interesting and what I found was, we used to talk a lot. And when we talked, we would do a lot of inquiry. So Ariana would say something or we'd learn about each other and we would dive deeper and we, try to understand that. And then what I found was that as time got compressed and we had less time together to do those things, what we started doing a lot more was advocating. So I would advocate my position. I tell her how I felt and then not really take that time to inquire about how she felt and understand that. And once we started, doing that again, like one of the things we put in place that helped a lot was every week we would just dedicate some time and we would reflect on the past week. And we'd start saying, what went well, what didn't go well. And especially like when we were having challenges with our kids not sleeping and some of those things, prior to that, she would be like upset because I wasn't playing the role of the father and husband of, fulfilling my parental duty. But as we had those conversations and I started asking her, how are you feeling about this? What's going on? What's in your head? That would come out. And then I knew I could take that role. But as, before that, when I was, always like advocating for what I wanted, I wasn't taking enough time to listen. And just asking more of the questions, it was amazing how much more I figured out that I could be doing to help with that.
What I hear in that too is like, because you had such a short amount of time, it was like your brain probably just told you, I need a shortcut here. And so it's like, I know I have to get across this message, so blah, 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 And so, that's all I have time for is just to say what I mean. And that's what I mean. And so that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think for me too, it was, I'm the worrier. I'm the mother of, I was the mother in college. Not the mother of dragons, I was like the mom in college where I was the one responsible for all the people when we went out to the bars and who's getting rides. And I was the driver, I was always worrying about everyone else. And when you get into that role of mom and wife, that's a good thing to have, but you also have to learn how to worry about yourself. And I didn't. I just didn't do it. I didn't have time. I didn't have the brain power. So what started to happen was I didn't ask him for help. I didn't reach out and say, hey, I cannot do this. Like physically, can't do it. I was just keeping it all in. And then I would explode or like have these meltdowns with him. And he'd be like, what's happening? Like, why are you so upset out of the blue? And it was because I didn't say anything like, hey, I am exhausted. Your son did not sleep at all while you were gone at working, you know, and you come home and then you aren't really taking the father responsibilities that I want you to, but I didn't voice that. So I was just expecting him to know in my head, like, oh, well, she must be exhausted. So let me go right ahead and get up with the kids at night and then early in the morning.
And that's what's cool about what he was saying too, about like just asking those questions. I noticed the questions that he asked were more like, what are you thinking or what are you feeling about this? And it's more about like what's going on in here, not the details of like, what time did he go to bed? And
no more, I need, what do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need? Oh, I need this.
That's a great question. That's always a great question to ask when somebody's in a bind, is like, what do you need? And it might just be like, I need friggin' 10 minutes to myself.
Yeah. I need a nap.
Yeah.
Danielle's the queen of, I just need 10 minutes to myself. Like, great, take it. Like,
or take the rest of the day. Your choice. I need 10 minutes or the rest of the day.
I was like, listen, I need to get out of this house. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I need to get out. He's like, just go.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, see you later. And it was amazing. I just went and walked around the mall for like 2 hours.
Yeah, I was just sitting in my car right outside of Target, drinking my iced tea, listening to Kathy Lee and Hoda on the XM radio, and I was very, very happy. I didn't even have anything to get in Target. I think I was just sitting in the parking lot, feeling the Target-ness. Yeah. It was making me happy. And my iced tea, and I was a happy girl. And then I went home, and it was fine.
That's I go to the library. That's my trip. Heather Gray actually yelled at me back when we had our mindset call, and I was like figuring out all of the stuff in my head. She's like, what do you enjoy doing? Do more of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. I'd like to
that was a great Heather impersonation. That was
okay, she's a shrink. For those of you that don't know, she's the screw shrink.
She was on.
That sounds weird too.
Okay.
She was on the show. Heather Gray is a mindset coach. If you look back at some of the old episodes, she was on talking about communication with entrepreneurial spouses. But yeah, it was so simple. And once I did that, I was like, oh, this is so easy. Like, I love reading. Mm-hmm. So now when I have a rough week, I'm like, no, you know what? Next week, I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to get a couple books. And instead of work, hustle, I'm going to take an hour a day and just sit and just read. Yeah. And it's been amazing to do that for myself. And then he's also happier because I'm happier. I'm not stressed out. He's like, oh, I'm so happy you're reading again. I'm like, really?
Yeah. What's your happy thing, Tom?
I had a couple, but usually it's just getting some time to myself. So that could be, playing video games, in the summer, go out and out golfing, but just time away from, business and just to be able to think, and so mindless activities, I guess that's what I was saying.
Mindless activities. Yeah. I think we're both a little bit like that because I don't read to learn things.
Right.
I read like fantasy, science fiction-y novels. Yeah. So that's my thing. We also like to watch TV shows that are like that. Game of Thrones and Harry Potter.
It's so interesting that
Danielle
when you said
handle that stuff because people have weird faces.
I do. I don't like weird faces. But thanks for outing me that I'm a sci-fi snob. I totally am, though.
I just alluded to it. You're the one that confirmed it.
Yeah, I do confirm it. I still love y'all, though. But what I was going to say was that when you choose those activities, like you said, reading or golf or whatever, it's tricky. Sometimes you and I have this conversation of like, I'll say like, oh, I need to go to Target for an hour or whatever. And you're like, okay, well, is that going to be restorative for you? Because sometimes it's restorative to sit down and watch a half an hour of Gilmore Girls. But sometimes it's just an escapism kind of thing. And I'm still at the same point a half an hour later. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, maybe reading a book is restorative one day, but another day it's just like, it's just, a non-issue. So I'm always like, is that going to feel restorative? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go do it.
Sometimes that's what we're really looking for. And there's this razor thin line that we dance on between numbing out, whether it's drugs or alcohol or hiking or
whatever
working on the old 54 Chevy or playing video games. Or
it can be anything.
Yeah.
We can use it to numb out, or what we're really looking for, what the heart is really longing for, is restoration. Just that space on the golf course. Just breathe in the beauty of the land, the fresh air, to just stretch and do something that doesn't require so much holding everything together. Yeah. To just focus on one thing. For me, riding a motorcycle is that, hiking, watching shows sometimes. It's about self-care in a way that is truly restorative.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of comments. I'm going to scroll through
Yeah.
and read some of those. Megan says her and her husband have a weekly marital staff meeting, and that helps them stay connected and on top of budding conflict before it can take over.
I want to
Awesome.
know where you heard the term marital staff meeting. I think I know.
And then it's when you stop being hurt by each other that you need to worry, I think, into the pain, because that's where the prize is.
Yep.
That is
Absolutely.
truth right there.
Every great story, the hero or heroine heroine goes through
Whatever we know.
trials and challenges and ordeals. And it's through the pain
Yep.
that the character is transformed. And it's the same thing in a relationship.
So let me ask you guys, as people that focus on relationships and marriage, there's this stigma around seeking help, and it's funny because we don't see that stigma around athletes,
No.
or in business or anywhere else, right? But around marriage and what is typically the most important thing in our lives, we see the stigma around talking to someone. What do you guys encounter with that, and what do you recommend people to do to get past that, or to understand that it's okay and it's actually what people do to build that relationship?
I mean, isn't that crazy?
Right?
Right?
It is.
Like if you buy a car, you're going to put gas in it, you're going to change the oil. You're
Okay,
gonna
we're not
take care of
cars, but yeah.
And a marriage isn't a car.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's a much more significant thing.
Or like with this
We
group,
invest in those kinds of things, but we don't think about that it's a consistent investment over time that makes it strong, so that when the storm comes, when there's a crisis, betrayal, disappointment, or a death or of any kind, we're in it shoulder to shoulder instead of going at it nose to nose.
well, even think about, like, I know this is a family group, so I'm assuming most people probably have kids in this
Large
group.
majority.
If you think about like your relationship with your children, like how consistently are you building into that relationship? Like moment by moment, like every
You're reading
second.
parenting books. And
Yeah.
You're listening to podcasts about it. You're talking with other friends. Like, how did you handle that?
We're talking to your parents
But all of a
about
sudden, when it comes to the most important relationship in your life, and the most important relationship in your kids' lives is yours, we clam up, we freak out, we shame ourselves into a hole, and we live in a place of denial about how important it is and the need to invest.
Well, and the thing is too, is like typically, like what Tom was saying, a lot of couples only go for help when I'll say it, when their marriage is in the crapper.
in the crapper. In the crapper.
She usually does this motion when she says it. Oh, there you go.
But in what we do, our legendary marriage coaching, our audience is not the crapper people. It is the people that like, think about in your business, in your career, you always want to be on the top of your game. You don't want to just be the average Joe Schmo. Like, you want to be the guy. You want to be the best. You want to be the top. And we want people that see their marriage as that too. They don't want to be just coasting along, like gambling. Well, it's a 50-50 chance if we're going to make it. And no, they're not okay with that. Like, they're not okay with that.
They're practicing maintenance. They're doing real-time, constant maintenance on their marriage to make it.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy part. It's not even about the marriage. Because the marriage isn't, we aren't talking about marriage. It's not a separate thing. It's the bucket that the whole life happens inside of. So what we end up talking about is the communication skills, so you can have the conversations that really matter, that get you on the same page, that get you standing shoulder to shoulder. And that's where the intimacy and the connection and the fun and the adventure and the laughter and all of that comes from.
And, I never go to Justin and I'm like, let's talk about our marriage. Like, I don't, even we're marriage coaches. We don't do that. But what we do talk about is we're like, okay, well, we have to talk about you know, trips to the in-laws, and we need to talk about, you know, like
how are we going to
dreaming.
navigate that? Because there are certain relational elements of there that can cause some tensions. And how do we want to design with your parents or my parents about that stay together? And
or
so
what do we want to be
it's always
saving?
about us.
What do we want to be saving money for? Like,
Yeah.
what's the next adventure we want to go on? Or, you know, what's it going to look like for us to, you know, really like embrace our health this month, because we've got a tough month coming up, and we know we always get sick when we're like working and like whatever it is. And so it's like, those are the things that we talk about. It's just even if you're a single person, that's just part of your life. But because you're married, my health and my, you know, spending habits and my whatever affect the relationship between us because we're married.
Yeah. So how has being an entrepreneur made that conversation more interesting? Because you guys work together. I mean, we know. It throws a whole another tool in those gears.
So when I first left my job in 2012 and started the coaching business, even before that, when I first really started learning the coaching tools and everything, it was like, this is what I'm going to do. My dream was to do it with Danielle.
Yeah.
Like, I want us to do this together in service of our family and the vision that we have for where we want to go, the kind of legacy we want to create with our lives for our kids and everything else. We want to do it together. And so
it's actually kind of, it's kind of funny because Justin has he has a coaching practice where he coaches men, and I have my own where I would coach women.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we would sit down together just because we had time together, and we would be like working on our marketing or branding or, you know, whatever it was that we were working on. And there was so much overlap of like what our mindset is and who
what's
we're
your
going
ideal
after.
client? Oh, that sounds exactly like mine. How do you want to do this thing? Oh, that's how I want to. Oh, why would you back and forth?
And we're like, this is like 95% the same exact thing that we are
Hey,
doing.
do you want to know a secret?
What?
That whole conversation out on the patio at Plate 21, where that happened?
Yeah.
It was all engineered.
You were just copying my paper?
No. No. I engineered the conversation. Like I brought it about because I knew that would happen.
Oh,
I was
you're
gonna
so
say,
tricky.
we need to go into this because this is a lot of what I end up doing. Like, I call it planting the seed.
Oh,
But a lot of what I do is, and it's about.
It feels like.
But even what you guys were talking about earlier.
Excellent.
So I think we have like 10 GIFs coming out of this interview, just so you guys know.
I can't wait to see 'em.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
But as you guys were talking earlier, even about marriage, what I heard was, being intentional about what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And then being proactive. So you're not waiting until, it's in the gutter. You're being proactive ahead of time to make sure you get there. And what I find with our lives, with our business is, there's a lot of things that we might want to do, and, planting the seeds and kind of seeing what things stick, what don't, and then we build off of that. And it's, creating, what I find is it's creating the situation where it can happen. Because oftentimes we just kind of drift through and, let things happen to us, rather than taking hold and saying, here's where I want things to go. So what things can I be doing to help force it into that direction? And then make sure that we have that conversation. Because oftentimes people just never get there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I want to do the sachet. I want to tell about the sachet.
Sure.
Like, this is the tool. This is the tool that creates all of that. It lays the foundation for all of the kind of
and I want to
alignment
say
that you're talking about.
it's super simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple but not easy.
Simple, not easy.
So there's this great tool called the sachet check-in. And here's the idea. Sachet stands for sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. Right?
Full range of human emotions.
Six words that incorporate every emotion that we experience. We tend to minimize certain ones. Like, instead of angry, we might say, oh, I'm not angry, but I'm frustrated. The root of that is anger. Just own it.
You're angry.
Right? Just because you're not F-bomb dropping, freaking out, pissed off, doesn't mean it's not anger. So anyway, sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. We take this sachet, and basically you give each person 5 minutes 10 minutes, however long you want, but 5 minutes to check in, to just say, what am I sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, and tender about? Some of them might be really obvious, might be really close to the surface, and some won't. And if you just shut up and listen, and you're not allowed to respond, you're not allowed to interject. We try not even to do the coachy, yeah.
It's challenging though.
It's hard.
Oh, absolutely.
But you can't ask questions, you can't make offerings, you can't give advice, you can't, nothing. It's just shut up and let your spouse share their heart with you.
For 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes. And listen. And then, when they're done, you can ask a couple questions. But the questions are always in service of deepening your understanding of what they just shared.
Not like, what time did Tommy go to bed? Or whatever. Yeah.
So do you think that maybe if you didn't let the van get to empty, it might reduce the stress in your life? Like, no, it's Tom, I know you're pissed about this thing that happened at work, and it's not fair. Like, I get it. What do you need out of it to feel resolution with it? You know, how can I help? Things like that. Anything to deepen the understanding. 5 minutes for you, 5 minutes for me. Just a minute or one or two questions, if you have one, in between. If you practice that, it creates this coachy term, safe and courageous space, where you start to get aligned about what you want. You start to understand how to communicate with each other. Because men and women and introverts and extroverts and all the different Mars and Venus and love languages and all those things, when you just shut up and listen, you pay attention.
From this interview, just shut up and listen.
If you pay attention, you start to learn, how do I share what I am excited about with you in a way that you understand? You start to learn each other's languages. You start to align about what you want. And that's
and not trying to do the thing that Tom said earlier was just like I want to win over or make my point real quick,
gosh.
You know, whatever.
How many times do we see this all over? Guys talking about, I got to get her to do my thing. Like this gross misunderstanding of what leadership means in the masculine. It's always about creating alignment, whether it's with your wife or the people that work for you or the people you work for, or
which brings up a good point. One of the dirty words that we really don't like is compromise. Because so many times people think in marriage, like, if I just compromise, then like I'm doing a good thing for my marriage because I'm doing a noble thing and letting them like have their way or whatever it is.
It's not supposed to be a win-lose.
But what in fact ends up happening is you build up resentment when you let the other person win or you compromise like over and over and over again. It builds up more and more resentment. When you do what Justin said is when you talk more and you just naturally are headed toward the same thing. You are lined up. You are aligned. You are shoulder to shoulder. Because you understand where the other person's coming from, you can come at it together instead of like, well, either you get your way or I get my way, and those are the only two options.
You win this one, or you win that one, or happy wife, happy life.
Please
or,
stop. Please stop.
All those.
It's the Stephen Covey thing. Think win-win. Like
you
can both like be in the same.
And here's kind of the golden nugget. Have a vision of where you're headed.
Yes.
Like, what is the big picture legacy you're trying to create? Not how much money you want to leave to the kids when you're dead and so they can have an inheritance and all that stuff. That's great. It's important. It's a great goal. What's the legacy you want to live? What are the kind of people you want to be? What's the story of your family going to be? And when you get clear about what that is, then when you're sitting down and talking about finances, instead of going nose to nose, you're shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, I'm feeling a little like I might need to get back to the gym, I can when Danielle says something like that, or when I say it, she can come alongside and say, yeah, here's where we're headed.
Yeah.
And it's not her calling me a fatty fat.
Fatty fat. There we go.
That's your other quote, fatty fat.
Well, and you know, like that. Like
if only there were a filter.
Well, I love the word alignment, right? Like, and so many people don't realize that. And you know, it took us, you know, not doing things, you know, correctly or not being aligned and getting to a tough spot to where what it came out with was having a discussion. You know, why are we doing this? What do we want our lives to look like? And it sounds like a simple question, but when you sit down and try to figure that out and you take the day-to-day stuff away, most people don't ever think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And once we did, to your point, we got aligned and we had a picture. And then when we had conversations, it became much easier to filter that is in alignment with where we're trying to go and we're going to do it, or it's not, and we're going to take it off the table. Exactly. But without having something to gauge that, it's so difficult. And to your point, you end up going head to head instead of shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. And a good point, another point on that too, is that when you don't have a vision or a dream that you're going after, a lot of times when you're like going after something and like, especially when you're an entrepreneur, like that can be an easy, like, this is the legacy we want to do. We want to build Legendary Marriage and y'all want to do your thing. And there, you know, there can be easy things like that. Well, easy, yeah, just say like it's easy. But if you don't have a vision or a dream and you're just kind of, like you said, just letting things happen or whatever, sometimes some of the passion can come out of life and you can just kind of feel like
alone,
listless, dull, boring, that kind of stuff. And so in an effort to feel that aliveness, you can have a crazy fight. Or you can pick at things. Right? You can make drama out of things that are not a thing.
Like be honest. Think about the moments when, if you look at your story, the high drama, just the big fights, the crazy things where you're like,
what is that even
train
about?
Wreck. We're watching this train wreck and we can't stop it. What the heck is going on here?
Yeah, it's because you're not going after the same thing together. You have, like you said, a lot of people don't think about it, but you have no idea where you're going. So in an effort just to feel alive, you poke at something. Yeah.
And we would never do that in business, right? We would never start filling the shelves of the store with products and things that have nothing to do with the core business.
Yeah.
We would never start randomly shoving different products over here. It's all intentional. You know, when somebody walks in the door of the store, this is the first thing that they're looking for. And so you put it there. You know the kinds of market permissions you have as an organization to grow into those areas.
Well, and it's interesting. So you bring up business. So the businesses that don't do well are typically the ones that don't have that alignment. And you look at, you know, a business and they'll bring something in and you're like, why is this business doing that?
Yeah.
And, you know, when we do business coaching, that's a lot of what we end up finding is that when people get off and the business just isn't clicking, they don't have that alignment. And as a result, other things come in that just don't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's once you clear those things out, then it becomes much easier to focus on what's important.
Yeah. All right. And how much more effective are you going to be? You're going to like get after stuff hardcore, and you build the cohesiveness and the connection and everything when you're going after the same thing. So,
all right. Well, we could probably talk for hours.
But
what time is it?
We got cocktail hour, people.
We
Let's
got
wrap this up.
drinks. So before we go, tell everyone where they can find you. You guys have a Facebook group and you're on.
So we have a podcast on iTunes, Legendary Marriage Podcast. We have legendarymarriage.com, where you can find out all kinds of great stuff about who we are.
We've got intensive. We've got a free Facebook group where we're carrying on the conversation. We talk about everything from parenting to career to health and fitness, and we talk about our podcasts from the week. So it's a really cool place to just really work on your.
Some other couples who refuse to settle for an ordinary marriage.
They want to make theirs
legendary.
I love it. Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys for being on the show. And in real life was awesome. I'm so glad we figured it out. And for everyone watching, if you've got questions, comments, feel free to post them up, tag us in them if you're watching the replay. And if you aren't a part of our Facebook group, the Family Entrepreneur Life, please head on over and join that. We have a lot of great conversations in there as well. and join the Legendary Marriage group, and we can just hang out everywhere on Facebook. So thank you all for watching, and we are going to head out to have some drinks.
That's right.
Bye.
Woo-hoo.